Hey everybody, hope you guys are healthy and safe. So this is a review of the Oppo Reno 5 Pro. This is the global version. I've been using it for the past 4 or 5 days now, like almost 5 days now. Alright, hold up. Some of you guys may notice that this is my second upload of this video. There was an original version of the same review that was live for about 30 minutes before I took it down. The reason I took it down is because I made a couple of mistakes when talking about the phone. So I'm going to correct those mistakes by basically jumping into the video at 2 different points in this video. The Oppo Reno 5 Pro is a mid-tier smartphone. I don't know the price yet officially, but this is a mid-tier phone. We know that because it doesn't have any zoom camera at all, and it lacks some of the more flagship flourishes that we've all come to expect, like stereo speakers, wireless charging. So this phone doesn't have any of that. Instead, this is a really solid mid-tier phone that doesn't have many weaknesses if you're looking at it from a purely mid-tier phone point of view. You have a 6.5-inch OLED display, 90 Hz refresh rate, with a small hole punch cutout in the corner housing a 32 megapixel selfie camera. Now, as you can see, this screen looks great. It's an OLED panel. Viewing angles are excellent. Max brightness. Now this is max brightness under the sun, completely visible under the sun. Now around the back, this is a plastic build. So I made a mistake right there. So the Oppo Reno 5 Pro's back is actually not plastic at all. It's actually glass. The reason I was confused is because this doesn't feel like any glass I've touched before, because Oppo developed this new process they call it Reno Glow. It's a new glass tempering technology that they made that gives a little bit of a frosted, soft touch. So I was thrown off by the texture, but this is actually glass, not plastic. But there's this matte coating that gives it like a smooth, soft to the touch, frosted texture. Kind of like similar to what Huawei did with the Mate 40 Pro and what Samsung did with the S21 Ultra series. Now over here you have a quad camera system, Really, it's a dual camera system. The headliner is a 64 megapixel main camera right here in the middle. It's an f1.7 lens. And above that, you have an ultra wide angle camera. It's an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera. It gets the job done in bringing more into the frame, and Oppo software does a really good job of fixing distortions and all that, but 8 megapixel ultimately is a little bit low. So if you shoot with the ultra wide angle camera at night, photos are gonna take a hit. If you zoom in too much on an ultra wide angle photo, it's still gonna take a hit, but again, for mid-tier phone, gets the job done. And down here you have a 2 megapixel macro sensor. It works fine, but again, we've seen phones that can incorporate a macro sensor into just either the main or the ultra wide angle camera. You don't need a dedicated lens for that. And finally, over here is a depth sensor that helps with portraits. Now, I tried a portrait on my girlfriend, I tried it on a cat. It looked pretty nice, but still, do we really need a dedicated lens just for a portrait? Now, there's a 4,350 mAh battery in here, and it's been enough to last me all day easily. I would finish entire days with like 30% battery life left. And good news, the Oppo Reno 5 Pro still gives you a charging brick. It is a 65 watt charging brick. Basically, let's say you have like 10% battery life left on the phone, just plug the phone in, go to the bathroom, take a dump, or go make a quick phone call or something. You come back 7 minutes later and it's back up to like 65, 70% battery life. It's insane. Now, if you follow the Oppo series, you know that this phone looks very, very familiar to the Oppo Reno 4, which came out just like 4 or 5 months ago. It's really hard to tell the difference just looking at the device, really, other than the fact that the selfie hole punch is a little bit smaller and the camera module has an extra sensor here. Overall construction in-hand feel is very similar. It's a really thin phone, 7.6 millimeter. So what exactly is new? Well, the Oppo Reno 5 Pro supports 5G, courtesy of the Dimensity 1000 Plus chip that's in here. So Dimensity 1000 Plus, it's a 7 nanometer chip from MediaTek, and it's not going to come close to the Snapdragon 888, but it actually compares relatively closely to the Snapdragon 865. So Snapdragon 865 was a flagship chipset just even 2 months ago. Dimensity 1000U is a near flagship chipset right now, so that's a big jump from the Oppo Reno 4, which used Qualcomm's 700 series. Gaming on this has been perfectly fine with no issues, and other AI intensive tasks, like when you need to produce a fake bokeh, or when you're using night mode and the scene's a little bit complicated, and when you need to do complicated tasks like maybe use the front and main camera at the same time. And that's one of the new features with this phone. So if you go in the camera menu, you'll see that there's this thing called dual view. So you tap that on, Now you'll be able to shoot using the main camera on the back and the selfie camera at the same time. Okay, so this is dual view video of the Oppo Reno 5, so you see it shooting me and also whatever's in front of me, and you can also change the zoom level with the main camera, but you cannot go to the ultra wide. It's only 1 to 5x. Now you see that stabilization isn't that good when you shoot in dual view mode, but this is still a relatively really power intensive task that you need a near flagship chipset to pull that off. You wouldn't be able to do that with an older phone running like a Snapdragon 835 or something. Now as for overall camera performance, I don't have much issues. Photos during the day look great, focusing is fast, and video performance is relatively stable too. Selfie videos look pretty good too. It's really loud here, so I don't know if you can hear me, but this is unedited footage, selfie footage from... Alright, I'm back. So the other thing that I forgot to talk about in the original video is this new AI highlight mode. When you jump into video setting, there is a button here, AI, you just tap it and it turns on AI. Now you're not going to see much of a difference here because this mode is used for low light video. So as you can see here, I've turned off all the lights in my room. It's quite dark, and you can see the difference between shooting a video as normal and shooting a video AI highlight. You see that AI highlight does indeed brighten up the scene a little bit, but at the same time you get more noise. So I wouldn't say it's like a miraculous fix, but it does help bring highlights into shadowed areas. Now this is a 64 megapixel camera, but it shoots pixel bin photos. Now you do have an option to turn on what Oppo calls extra HD mode. What it is it basically shoots in 64 megapixel mode, and I can't really tell a difference between the 64 megapixel photo and the pixel bin photo, so to me it's kind of pointless. But it's not really just like a knock on Oppo. Every camera that offers you that trick, like on a Galaxy S21 Ultra, when you want to shoot in 108 megapixel mode, it really doesn't do anything. You're better off shooting it in the default pixel bin mode because the software has been optimized to produce the best shot possible using pixel bin technology. Now in terms of software, this phone runs on Android 11 with Oppo's Color OS version 11 on top. It is pretty clean. I like this moving wallpaper that comes default out of the software. You get an app tray. You can search within the app tray really easily. You can bring down a notification shade by swiping anywhere. You can double tap on the screen to turn on, but unfortunately you can't double tap to turn off. The fingerprint sensor in display is super fast. You have this little pull over menu here that you can pull over to pull up shortcut apps. You can add more apps if you want to. So if you're someone who uses calculator a lot, for example, you can have calculator here, just tap on it, you immediately have the app. And you see the calculator app, it's in smaller size. This is one of the new software features of Color OS. You can shrink certain apps to a mini floating window. So you can have a floating calculator over whatever graphics you're trying to look at. And you know, it sounds like it's a minor thing, but it actually helps so much. Like I use an iPhone sometimes, and it really annoys me that whenever I need to calculate something, I have to cycle between a calculator app and my other app back and forth because iPhone doesn't let you run two apps at the same time. So overall, my impressions of the Oppo Reno 5 Pro is quite good. Like I said, if you look at this as a mid-tier phone and you don't expect flourishes like a 120 Hz variable refresh rate and super fast wireless charging, if you leave those expectations out the window, and just go in with a mid-tier expectations, this phone checks every box. Construction is premium. There's really not a lot to complain about except the fact that it's a little bit boring and bland. Like improvements from the Oppo Reno 5 over 4, it's minimal. You really can only notice it if you're pushing the camera or playing heavy games. So you already have the Oppo Reno 4, you don't really need to upgrade at all. And for someone who tests a lot of flagship phones, I can't help but be a little bit bored by what Oppo's doing with the Reno series. Because if you remember, the original Reno was a flagship phone. It had a unique design, that shark fin pop-up lens. It had one of the very first periscope zoom cameras on the market. It was the second phone to use periscope zoom lens behind the Huawei P30 Pro. So the Oppo Reno started out as a flagship phone with a lot of ambition. And then since then, 2, 3, and 4, 5, it just kind of become this mid-tier phone that plays it quite safe. Like there's nothing wrong with this phone, but there's nothing that blows you away or makes you go whoa. Like they didn't even bother changing the design this much from the 5 to the 4. Now I don't know the price of the Oppo Reno 5. If this thing it's like over 500 bucks, I would say it's not worth it because you can just get the Oppo Reno 4 for a lot less money. or just get a mid-tier flagship like a Xiaomi Mi 11 for just a little bit more than that. But I have a feeling Oppo's going to sell this for a little bit less, maybe like 400 bucks. If it's a 400 bucks, maybe worth considering if you're looking for a good mid-tier phone. But I do wish Oppo would stop pumping out so many Reno phones just for the sake of it, and maybe focus on making phones that are a little bit special again. So anyway, that's about it for this review of the Oppo Reno 5 Pro 5G. It's a very solid, refined mid-tier phone. It's just a little bit bland. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.